She never had a real career, just sat at home collecting disability while the rest of us actually worked for a living. Linda's voice carried across my front porch like it always did. Loud, certain, completely wrong. I didn't look up from my knitting. The needles kept moving, click, click, click. If you've ever been dismissed by someone who couldn't handle your silence, hit that like button and subscribe. My name is Beverly Cross. I'm 63 years old, and for the past 7 years, I've lived in a white clapboard house at the end of Maple Street in Hadley, Virginia. Population 4,000, the kind of town where everyone knows your business or thinks they do. To my neighbors, I'm the quiet widow who moved here after her husband passed, the one who sits on her porch and knits blankets for the church donation drive, the one who walks slowly because of her bad hip, the one who never talks about what she did before. Linda Marsh has been my neighbor for 6 of those 7 years. She sells wellness supplements through something called Vitalife International. She drives a pink sedan with the company logo on both doors. She wears a lanyard with her sales rank printed in gold letters. Regional Diamond Achiever. She tells everyone about it at the grocery store, at the post office, at the monthly potluck at First Baptist, where she sets up a folding table with samples and brochures. Linda believes in visible success, in trophies you can display on your mantle, in business cards you can hand to strangers. I believe in different things. The morning she said those words about my career, we were sitting on my porch like we did most Tuesdays. She'd brought her binder full of Vitalife testimonials. I'd made sweet tea with too much sugar the way she liked it. The heat pressed down on us like a wool blanket. Cicadas screamed in the oak trees. My fingers kept working the yarn, sage green, for a baby blanket someone at church was expecting. Linda had been talking for 20 minutes about her upcoming regional conference, about the award she was receiving, about the stage and the applause and the crystal trophy shaped like a rising star. Top 15 in the Southeast region, she said. 15 out of 800 distributors. You know what that takes, Beverly? Dedication, hustle, actually getting out there and doing something with your life? I nodded. The needles clicked. Not everyone has that drive, she continued. Some people just coast, collect their checks, never really contribute anything. She looked at me then. Not with malice exactly, with something worse. Pity. I'm not saying this to be cruel, Beverly, but you've been sitting on this porch for years now, knitting, watching the world go by. Don't you ever wish you'd done something, built something, had a real career? The yarn slipped between my fingers. Soft, steady. I stayed busy, I said. Busy isn't the same as successful. Linda leaned forward, her lanyard swinging. I worry about you. Alone in this house, no family photos on the walls, no awards, no proof that you ever... She trailed off, gesturing vaguely at the air. Proof that I ever what? Mattered. The word hung there between us. I thought about telling her. For exactly 3 seconds, I let myself imagine what her face would look like if I explained where I'd actually been for 31 years, what I'd actually done, who I'd actually been. But that wasn't possible. It would never be possible, so I smiled and reached for my tea. Maybe you're right, I said. More sugar? That was 6 days ago. Linda had been unbearable since then. She'd told Martha Higgins at the beauty parlor that she was worried about me, told Pastor Williams that I might benefit from the church's senior activity program, told anyone who would listen that Beverly Cross had wasted her life, and it was just so sad. The word spread through Hadley like kudzu. By Thursday, people were looking at me differently, with that particular small-town sympathy that's really just superiority dressed in a cardigan. Poor Beverly. Never did anything with herself. I kept knitting. Friday morning broke, humid and heavy. I was on the porch by 7, working on the baby blanket. The sage green was almost done, just the border left. Linda's pink sedan pulled into her driveway at 8:15. She got out carrying a crystal trophy. The morning light caught it, throwing little rainbows across her lawn. She saw me watching and waved. Beverly, come see. They gave it to me last night. Regional Diamond Achiever. Isn't it beautiful? I set down my needles, walked across the grass to her driveway. The hip that everyone thought was bad didn't bother me at all. It never had. The trophy was heavy in my hands. Her name was engraved at the base. Linda Marsh. Excellence in Sales, 2024. That's wonderful, I said, and I meant it. She'd worked hard for this. She'd wanted it badly. You should be proud. I am. She took the trophy back, cradling it like a newborn. This is what a career looks like, Beverly. This is what you get when you actually go out and do something. I didn't respond. I'm having people over tomorrow to celebrate. She continued, the whole street. I'm going to put this right in the center of the dining room table so everyone can see it. You should come. Maybe it'll inspire you. Maybe it will. She went inside. I went back to my porch. The needles started moving again. Saturday arrived with storm clouds building on the horizon. Linda's house was full by noon. I could hear the chatter from my porch, the clinking of glasses, the periodic eruptions of laughter. I wasn't planning to go. But at 2:00, Linda appeared on my front steps with her hands on her hips. Beverly Cross, you are not sitting out here alone while everyone else celebrates. Get up, you're coming. I looked at the unfinished blanket in my lap. I'm almost done with the border. The border can wait. This is a party. You remember what those are, right? She was already pulling me up by the arm, already steering me across the lawn, already pushing me through her front door into a living room packed with neighbors. The trophy sat on the dining room table, exactly where she'd promised, surrounded by flowers and candles, a centerpiece of crystal achievement. Martha Higgins handed me a glass of wine. Pastor Williams asked about my hip. Everyone smiled at me with that same soft pity. Poor Beverly. At least she got out of the house for once. Linda clinked her glass with a fork. Everyone, thank you so much for coming. This award means the world to me. But more than the trophy, I'm grateful for this community, for all of you. She paused. Her eyes found me in the crowd. Some of us build empires. Some of us watch from the porch. But we're all neighbors, and that's what matters. Laughter rippled through the room. I took a sip of my wine. That's when the doorbell rang. Linda frowned. Everyone's already here. She pushed through the crowd toward the front door. I watched her through the window as she opened it. A man stood on her porch. Dark suit. No tie. A bearing that civilians never quite recognized, but that I identified immediately. He was holding a plain brown box, no markings, no return address. I'm looking for Beverly Cross, he said. I was told she might be here. Linda's confusion was visible even from inside. Beverly? She's inside. Can I ask what this is about? No, ma'am, you cannot. The room had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now as Linda led the man inside, as his eyes swept the crowd with professional assessment. As they landed on me, he crossed the room without acknowledging anyone else. Mrs. Cross. Yes. He held out the brown box. Delivery for Jane Doe. The silence in Linda's living room became absolute. Linda's laugh broke the silence, sharp, nervous. Jane Doe? Beverly, is this some kind of joke? A gag gift? I didn't answer. My hands were steady as I took the box from the courier. It weighed almost nothing. But I knew what was inside. I'd known the moment I saw him standing on the porch. Beverly? Linda stepped closer. Who's Jane Doe? Is that some nickname I don't know about? The courier remained motionless. His eyes never left mine. Ma'am, he said quietly, you'll want to open that in private. She doesn't have secrets from us. Linda put her hand on my arm. The gesture was possessive, proprietary. We're her community, her family, really. Whatever this is, she can open it right here. Martha Higgins nodded. Pastor Williams leaned forward. 23 neighbors watched me with curiosity bordering on hunger. Poor Beverly, finally getting some excitement. I looked at the box. plain brown cardboard, no markings, the kind of container that could hold anything or nothing, the kind that had found me 3 times before, in 3 different countries, carrying 3 different messages, all of them classified, all of them life-altering. "Fine," I said. "I'll open it here." The courier's expression flickered. Just for a moment. A warning I chose to ignore. I lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in black velvet, lay a medal, gold and blue enamel, an eagle with spread wings, a compass rose at its center, the Distinguished Intelligence Cross. Linda peered over my shoulder. "Oh, that's pretty. Is it some kind of church thing? A volunteer award?" "Something like that." Jane Doe. She read the small card tucked beside the medal. "Awarded for extraordinary heroism involving the acceptance of existing dangers with conspicuous fortitude and exemplary courage." She looked up at me. "Beverly, what is this? Some kind of replica? Did you order this online?" "No." "Then where did it come from?" The courier spoke before I could answer. "The director sends his regards, ma'am. He wanted you to know that the empty room was full of gratitude." Linda's brow furrowed. "The empty room? What empty room? Beverly, you're not making any sense. Neither of you are making any sense." I touched the metal. Cold metal. 31 years of service condensed into gold and enamel, and a citation I would never be allowed to read aloud. "My retirement party," I said. "It was held in an empty room." "That's absurd." Linda laughed again, but the sound was hollow now, uncertain. "Retirement parties have people, cake, speeches. That's the whole point." "Not mine, because you never had a career." She said it like a fact, like the sky being blue. "You told me yourself you stayed busy. That's what you said. Busy isn't a career." I set the medal back in its box, closed the lid. "I said I stayed busy. I never said I didn't have a career." The courier remained at attention. His presence was changing the room. I could feel it. The way conversation shifted when someone with clearance walked in. The way civilians sensed authority, even when they couldn't name it. Linda crossed her arms. Her Regional Diamond Achiever trophy gleamed behind her on the table. "Beverly, we've been neighbors for 6 years. I've been inside your house 100 times. There are no photos, no awards, no certificates on the walls, nothing that suggests you ever did anything except sit on that porch and knit." "That's correct." "So what is this? Some kind of scam? Did you buy fake military medals to impress people? Because that's actually illegal. My nephew is a police officer. He told me about stolen valor." The courier's jaw tightened. "Ma'am," he said to Linda, "I'd advise you to stop talking." "Excuse me? Who are you to tell me what to do in my own house?" "Beverly, tell this man to leave. Whatever game you're playing, it's not funny anymore." I looked at the courier. He was young, mid-30s, the kind of operative I used to train. "What's your name?" "Collins, ma'am. Station chief, Richmond." "How long have you been read in?" 3 years. But I've known about you since the academy. They use your after-action reports as teaching material, the ones that aren't still classified anyway." Linda made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a cough. "Teaching material? Beverly knits blankets for the church. She can barely walk to the mailbox without stopping to rest. You expect me to believe she's some kind of, what, spy? Secret agent?" She said the words like they were ridiculous, like the very idea was a joke. The courier didn't smile. "Mrs. Cross spent 31 years as a paramilitary operations officer with the Central Intelligence Agency's Special Activities Division. She served in 11 conflict zones. She received the Distinguished Intelligence Cross twice. The one in that box is her third." The room had stopped breathing. "She also received the Intelligence Star, the Intelligence Medal of Merit, and several others that remain classified because the operations they recognize have not been declassified and may never be." Linda's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. That's impossible. Ma'am, with respect, you have no idea what's possible. Pastor Williams cleared his throat. Beverly, is this true? I didn't answer immediately. 31 years of training didn't disappear because someone asked a direct question. Some of it, I finally said. The parts he's allowed to tell you. The parts he's allowed to. Linda pressed her hand to her forehead. Beverly, you sell jam at the farmer's market. You complained last week that your hip hurt too much to walk to church. You told me you spent your life doing nothing. I never told you that. You told me that. I just didn't correct you. Because you were lying. Because I was following the law. The Courier shifted slightly. Mrs. Cross's service record remains classified at the highest levels. Her real name has never appeared in any public document. Every operation she participated in is protected under executive order. The woman you know as Beverly Cross does not officially exist. Martha Higgins sat down heavily on Linda's couch. Jane Doe, she whispered. That's why the card says Jane Doe. Correct, ma'am. When you spend 3 decades as a non-official cover operative, your legal identity becomes complicated. The agency uses Jane Doe for medal ceremonies. It's cleaner. Linda's trophy caught the light again. Crystal and achievement and visible success. Everything she believed in sitting on her dining room table while her entire understanding of me collapsed around her. The empty room, she said slowly. Your retirement party, you said it was held in an empty room. It was. But he said it was full of gratitude. I looked at Collins. He nodded slightly. It was empty of people, I said, for security reasons. But the director was there via secure feed. So were 13 station chiefs from around the world. So were 4 members of the National Security Council. None of them could be in the same room with me because none of them officially knew I existed. Linda's hand found the back of a chair. She gripped it like an anchor. 31 years. 31 years. And you never told anyone? That's correct. You let me... Her voice cracked. You let me stand on your porch and tell you that you never had a real career. You let me tell people you were collecting disability and wasting your life. You let me pity you. Yes. Why? The needles I'd been working with for 7 years, the blankets I'd donated, the tea I'd made, the silence I'd kept, because the mission never ends, Linda. You protect your cover. You protect the people who can never know. You protect the operations that are still running and the assets who are still in the field and the sources who would die if anyone knew their names. I touched the box with the metal inside. You do your job, even when no one knows. Even when everyone thinks you're nothing, even when your neighbor tells the whole town that you wasted your life. Linda's face had gone white. Beverly! The front door opened again. A woman stepped inside. Gray suit, silver hair cut short, the kind of posture that came from decades of commanding rooms. Colin snapped to attention so fast I heard his heels click. Deputy Director, he said. The woman's eyes found me across the crowded living room. 23 civilians, 1 station chief, 1 retired operative who'd spent 3 decades in the shadows. She smiled. Hello, Beverly. It's been too long. Linda's crystal trophy caught the afternoon light one more time. It seemed smaller now, fragile. Deputy Director Catherine Holt crossed the room without acknowledging anyone else. The civilians parted for her, automatically responding to an authority they couldn't name but couldn't ignore. She stopped in front of me. I told the director I wanted to deliver this one personally. He agreed. Catherine. I nodded. You didn't have to come all this way? Yes, I did. She glanced at the box in my hands. 3 distinguished intelligence crosses. Do you know how many people in agency history have received 3? I don't keep count. 2. You and 1 other. and his were posthumous. Linda made a small sound, something between a gasp and a whimper. Catherine turned to look at her. The assessment was clinical, complete. The kind of evaluation I'd taught hundreds of officers to perform. "You must be the neighbor," Catherine said. "The one who's been telling everyone that Beverly wasted her life." Linda's mouth moved, but no words came out. I read the situation report. Collins flagged it when he arrived. Apparently, the whole town thinks Beverly Cross is a sad old woman who never accomplished anything. Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. "That's actually perfect cover. We couldn't have designed it better ourselves." I didn't know. Linda's voice was barely a whisper. How could I have known? You couldn't have. That was the point. Catherine looked back at me. But you didn't have to let her humiliate you. You could have requested reassignment, a different cover, a different town. I shook my head. The cover worked. It kept working. That's what mattered. Even when she told people you were collecting disability, even then, even when she pitied you to your face, Catherine, I met her eyes. I once spent 11 months pretending to be a cleaning woman in a compound where they executed suspected spies every Tuesday. A neighbor with opinions about my career isn't exactly challenging. Linda sat down. She didn't seem to choose to. Her legs simply stopped holding her up. Pastor Williams stepped forward. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. "Mrs. Cross, Beverly, I've known you for 7 years. I've watched you sit in the same pew every Sunday. I've eaten your jam and accepted your donations and never once suspected." He trailed off. "That was the job, Pastor. Seeming like nothing, being invisible, the kind of person no one looks at twice. But why? Why would anyone choose that?" I looked around Linda's living room, at the crystal trophy, at the flowers and candles, at 23 neighbors who had spent years feeling sorry for me. "Because some things matter more than being seen," I said. "Because operations succeed when no one knows they're happening. Because assets stay alive when their handlers stay invisible. Because the work is worth more than the credit." I opened the box again. The Distinguished Intelligence Cross gleamed against black velvet. "This medal recognizes an operation in 2019. I can't tell you where. I can't tell you what happened. I can tell you that 14 people are alive today who wouldn't be if I'd needed everyone to know how important I was." Martha Higgins was crying silently. I hadn't meant to make her cry. "The empty room," Linda said. Her voice had gone flat, hollow. "Your retirement party. All those people watching through screens because they couldn't be in the same room with you. Operational security. They gave you speeches, awards, recognition. Yes. And then you came home and I told you that you'd never accomplished anything. And you just let me?" I set the metal box down on Linda's coffee table, right next to her Regional Diamond Achiever trophy. "You didn't want the truth, Linda. You wanted a confession. You wanted me to admit that your life was more meaningful than mine, that your trophies and business cards and visible success proved something about both of us." She flinched. "I could have corrected you. I could have found a way to hint, to suggest, to let you wonder. But that would have been about my pride. And my pride was never more important than the work." Catherine nodded slowly. "That's why you received 3 of these. That's why your after-action reports are taught at the academy. Most people can't maintain cover when their ego is threatened. You maintained it for decades while your neighbor told the whole town you were worthless." "She wasn't wrong about what she saw," I said. "She saw a woman who knitted blankets and walked slowly and never talked about her past. That's exactly what she was supposed to see." Linda stood up abruptly. Her chair scraped against the floor. "I told everyone." Her voice cracked. "I told Martha. I told Pastor Williams, I told the whole town that you were a sad, pathetic woman who wasted her entire life. I said it at the beauty parlor, at the post office, at church. I know. I pitied you. I actually pitied you. I thought I was being kind, including you in things, trying to inspire you to do something with yourself. I know. And the whole time, she pressed her hands to her face. The whole time you were sitting there with 3 distinguished intelligence crosses and classified operations and a retirement party attended by the National Security Council. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Collins cleared his throat. Ma'am, we should discuss the security implications. The cover has been compromised. We'll need to. The cover served its purpose. Catherine interrupted. Beverly is retired. The operations are closed. The assets are either extracted or deceased. There's nothing left to protect except her privacy. She looked at the neighbors gathered in Linda's living room, which means all of you now have a choice. You can spend the rest of your lives telling people about the spy who lived on Maple Street. You can make Beverly's retirement a spectacle, or you can do what she did for 31 years. She paused. You can keep quiet. You can protect someone who spent her life protecting people she would never meet. You can let her knit her blankets and walk to church and live out her years in peace. Martha Higgins wiped her eyes. We won't say anything. I appreciate that. Pastor Williams nodded. Beverly has been a blessing to this community. The real Beverly or the one we thought we knew. Either way, she's given more than she's taken. Linda was staring at the 2 awards on her coffee table, the Crystal Trophy and the Intelligence Medal. Visible success and invisible sacrifice side by side. I'm sorry, she said. The words came out broken. Beverly, I'm so sorry. I spent years making you feel small, and I had no idea. You had exactly the idea I wanted you to have. But I was cruel. I said terrible things. I told people you never mattered. I picked up my medal. The weight of it was familiar. I'd held 2 others just like it in empty rooms with secure feeds and classified citations. You were wrong about what I did, I said. But you weren't wrong about what you saw. The woman you knew, the one who knits and walks slowly and never talks about her past. She's real too. She's who I am now. She's who I chose to become. I looked at Catherine. I didn't keep the cover because I had to. I kept it because I wanted to. Because after 31 years of being Jane Doe, Beverly Cross felt like a gift, a chance to be ordinary, to sit on a porch and make tea and watch the seasons change without wondering which asset would be executed if I made a mistake. Catherine's expression softened. You earned that piece, Beverly, several times over. Then let me keep it. I turned back to Linda. I don't need you to apologize. I don't need you to feel guilty. I need you to understand that the life you pitied, the blankets and the church donations and the quiet mornings on the porch, that life is exactly what I wanted, what I worked for, what I gave everything to have. Linda's eyes were wet. I thought visible success was the only kind that mattered. I know, most people do. I walked toward the door. Catherine fell into step beside me. Collins followed at a respectful distance. Beverly. Linda's voice stopped me at the threshold. The retirement party, the one in the empty room. What did they say? The people watching through the screens? I considered the question. The director said I'd saved more lives than I would ever know. The station chiefs thanked me for operations I couldn't remember agreeing to. Someone from the NSC read a citation that will remain classified until 2089. I paused with my hand on the doorframe. But the thing I remember most is the silence after, when the feeds cut out and the room was just a room again, empty and quiet and finished. I stood there for a long time just being no one, just being done. I looked at Catherine. That silence was worth more than any medal. The silence of a job completed, a cover maintained, a life that mattered to people who would never know my name. I stepped outside. The afternoon heat wrapped around me like an old friend. Catherine walked me back to my porch. Collins remained at the street, guarding the perimeter out of habit. "You know there will be questions," Catherine said. "The neighbors saw the medal. They heard the truth. Even if they stay quiet, rumors will spread. Let them spread. You're not concerned?" I settled into my rocking chair, picked up my knitting. The sage green blanket was almost done, just the border left. I spent 31 years being concerned, being careful, being invisible. The needles started moving again. Click, click, click. "I think I've earned the right to let people wonder." Catherine smiled. "You've earned more than that." She reached into her jacket and pulled out an envelope. Plain white, no markings. "The director wanted me to give you this personally. It's not an award. It's not a citation. It's just a letter from him saying thank you." I took the envelope, didn't open it. "Tell him he's welcome. Tell him the blankets are easier than the alternative." Catherine laughed. The first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in years. "Take care of yourself, Beverly." Jane, whoever you are today. Just Beverly. That's all I am now, just Beverly, who lives at the end of Maple Street and knits blankets for the church. She walked back to her car. Collins followed. A moment later, they were gone. I sat on my porch as the sun began to set. The storm clouds had blown past without delivering rain. The cicadas were starting their evening chorus. Somewhere down the street, I could hear Linda's guests leaving one by one, their voices hushed and uncertain. The medal sat in its box beside my rocker. 3 distinguished intelligence crosses, 31 years of service, 11 conflict zones, 14 people alive who wouldn't be otherwise. I picked up my knitting. The border was delicate work, required patience, required steady hands and careful attention, and the willingness to sit quietly while the world rushed past. Some things never change. I work at the church now, technically volunteer coordinator. And here, I organize the donation drives and the bake sales and the annual Christmas pageant. No titles, no plaques, just Beverly. Linda still comes by on Tuesdays. She doesn't bring her Vita Life binder anymore. She doesn't talk about visible success or regional diamond achievers or building empires. She sits on my porch and drinks sweet tea and watches me knit. Sometimes she asks questions. I answer the ones I can. Mostly we just sit in silence together. She's learning what I learned 31 years ago. That silence isn't empty. It's full of everything you choose not to say. Full of lives protected and operations completed and sacrifices made by people whose names will never appear on any wall. There is power in being invisible, freedom in being underestimated, strength in letting people believe whatever they need to believe about you. The noise always fades. The trophies gather dust. The visible achievements become footnotes in lives no one remembers, but the silence endures. I am no longer Jane Doe. I am no longer a paramilitary operations officer with classified citations and empty room retirement parties. I am Beverly Cross. I knit blankets. I make jam. I walk slowly to church on Sunday mornings and sit in the same pew I've sat in for 7 years. And that is more than enough. If you enjoyed this story about quiet competence winning over loud arrogance, hit that like button and let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell for more stories just like this one. Thanks for watching.